Hey guys, my name is Maggie and welcome to my first YouTube video. I have wanted to do YouTube ever since I was like a little girl. Like I can just remember like being in like 5th grade, 6th grade and just starting to make like little vlogs, videos, like whatever. Like that was just my thing, and I have been doing that since that point. Like always just made little vlogs and videos just to have for myself. Like never had the intention of posting them, but I always knew that when I was older, like this is something I probably would want to pursue, and so here we are. Guess just to introduce myself a little bit before we jump in, my name's Maggie. I am 18 years old. I'm a freshman at Liberty University studying Christian leadership and church ministries with a cognate in women's leadership, and I just have such a heart for Jesus and you know, like fulfilling my mission here on earth. A big part of that for me right now is evangelism, and I've really gotten into online ministry through TikTok on a small scale, but I love posting on there just little stuff about my faith and about Jesus. And yeah, so basically for my first video I was like, I should just share my testimony because one, it's so important, two, it's the best way to get to know me, and like it's just like there's nothing that kind of fits better, especially since I want this to be like faith-based. So yeah, I guess just let's jump into it. So I grew up in the church, going to church with my family, like always have since I was born. You're a pretty average family. It was me, my parents, and my younger sister. You know, pretty normal average family, I guess. But when it came to our faith, it kind of stayed like in the church and then sort of in the home, but like you not really expressed like out in the like public. I guess the best way to describe it was, you know, we'd go to church, we'd do all the things in church, we'd volunteer, we'd go to Sunday school, we would, you know, do Bible studies, and then at home, like, we talked about it a little bit and then stressed, you know, kind of the importance of just being a good person. And like, the same can be said for like my parents when they were growing up, because they grew up in similar churches, but definitely just was always seeming like it was the right thing to do. But you would never catch us like evangelizing in the streets or even talking to a friend who wasn't Christian or who doesn't go to church about our faith. You know, it was kind of just like, it was there. All I took it as like, oh, we go to church because we're supposed to. You know, I know who God is, but, you know, I know who God is and I believe in God, so I won't go to hell. And I just need to be a good person. Like that's kind of the extent of how it was, and that's just kind of what I left it at. Like I never really had anyone challenge my beliefs either. Like I feel like where I lived, it was almost a shock, at least when I was younger, if people didn't go to church. But it was like, it was never challenged, and then it was never corrected, I guess, the way I thought church was. And so I kind of lived like that. And I mean, I had a pretty great childhood. I had 2 parents who loved me. I had, you know, an average sibling relationship, I would say. I love my sister, and we did get along for the most part as children, but obviously siblings do get into tiffs, and so we had our fair share of those. And there's a pretty, not huge age gap, but we're 4.5 years apart, which I think did set a little bit of a rift, in my opinion, just because we were kind of at different stages and throughout most of our lives, but we still get along great, and we did as kids too, but obviously had our moments. So like my life was pretty great as a kid, and so yeah, my faith was never tested, but it was kind of, you know, like a Sunday morning Christian by name only. but I also didn't know any better. Like, I was just a kid. My perspective didn't really get challenged until I was in like middle school, and a friend invited me to her youth group and to her church a few times, and they were, I don't remember if they were like a non-denominational or like one that was very spirit focused, but it was so much different than my traditional church. And so, you know, at first I was like, oh, I like it so much better. You know, it's so much cool because they had like all the flashy lights, and like it was the first time I seen people like raise their hands and dance and worship, and I'm like, this is different, this is fun. Like, I kind of thought it, like, I obviously it had more, I don't know what the word is, like it had more significance on scripture and the spirit and like presence, but I still saw it as like cooler because I was used to, you know, the old lady singing in the choir and like singing hymns, which is completely fine, but it was so new to me that I was like, oh, this is so much better. And like, you know, but I started going to youth group with my friend Savannah more frequently, and kind of I loved going with her. And I just remember in middle school I was very much exploring my faith a lot, and I would go to Bible studies, I would go on church trips, I would go to the youth group and multiple youth groups. Like, I would go to my church's youth group and her church's youth group, and there was a significant difference between my church's youth group and hers, because there would be sometimes my youth group didn't even have like a message. Like, they kind of were just, we were just kind of there to like hang out, you know, hang out at church, you know, typical youth group. But theirs was more like, they had gotten to some pretty convicting, serious messages, and I liked that. So I really enjoyed going there, and I pretty much went there up until I graduated and moved here. End of 8th grade is when COVID happened, and then obviously everything was like shut down. I wasn't going to church anymore. We weren't going to youth group. We would do church online, but that just obviously like became more like a chore, and like more like we have to do it. Like, so it kind of became less of like an opportunity to continue to worship and more just like, ugh. And so we would try to do like Zoom meetings with like the youth group, but that got complicated too. So, you know, this whole time it was, and then my parents were kind of realizing that maybe we needed to switch churches too, because of just some things that were coming up in the church we were going to. At that point, I was kind of slipping away, but not in a sense where it's like I rejected my faith or didn't want anything to do with it whatsoever. It's just more like I just saw myself putting other priorities first. And at that point it was boys, which I feel like is a common thing for girls when they're 14 years old. My priority definitely became, you know, flirting and talking with boys, and, you know, like, you know, it was stupid. But it, you know, it's bound to happen. Like, I was 14 years old and a girl. I think because I fell out of the routine, I kind of fell out of my own desire. Basically, we ended up going to a new church. My family still goes there now. We like it. And so I was getting back into the routine of going to church. I started going back to my friend Savannah's youth group still, you know, ever so often. And I was kind of getting back into the swing of things, but I was still very lukewarm. I can like look back on my life and I'm be like, oh, I was really on fire for Jesus back then. But then I'm like, yeah, you were, but you also weren't. Like, there would be some days you'd be on fire, you'd be like praying all night, or like remember to like say your nightly prayers, or do, you know, read your Bible for a few days straight and dive into a study. But then like the next day you'd be like jamming out to music in the car and like screaming curse words and being at school and be like gossiping and stuff. And it's like, you know, I thought I was, but I was definitely, looking back, pretty lukewarm. So at that point, I also had applied to be in this Christian leadership program, and that was going to be through the end of my freshman year to the end of my sophomore year, pretty much. That was the kind of time frame. And I just remember being on the second trip of that, and I just remember lying in my bed, and I was like, Maggie, you're here trying to learn how to be a good Christian leader. You know, you want to be that, you desire that, but you're not living the lifestyle of one. Like, you're not actively trying to pursue that. Like, yeah, you want it, but how badly do you want it? Because you're not making, you know, you're not changing yourself. You're not desiring that change either. So I just kind of like had that like light switch moment. And then I just remember the next week, I mean the whole summer after that, but the next week just being at the beach for my family beach vacation, and like consistent with like going to the beach and like soaking in God's creation while reading the word and listening to worship music, or like, you know, I just was like, okay, yes, when I tell you that week, I was so on fire for Jesus, and it carried through the rest of the summer too. I just remember I started leading a girls' Bible study, like small group, for the program. I had to do that, but it was such a good opportunity to connect with some girls I knew but didn't know that well in my community and at school, and just grow in fellowship with them. And it was just so, like, I just remember that summer being so good. And so that was going into my sophomore year, and I still would say, like, being back at a church, being back at a church and like having routine, I started going back to youth group and stuff, definitely helped so much. So we ended up becoming members at this new church, my family and I, and we had all been baptized by like the sprinkling when we were babies. And so we kind of understood now that it's like, that's not the way to do that. Like, baptism should be on like your own profession, and then not, you know, when your parents say you're right, you know? So we all got re-baptized by like immersion, like when we joined the church, because they required it for membership. But like at that point, like we all did, you know, believe what we were saying when we did it. So we all got to be baptized as a family, so my parents got to do it, which was a really special moment. So that kind of happened at the end of my sophomore year. Summer before junior year was pretty good. I just remember that summer being so full of joy, and I was pretty consistent with scripture reading too, and, you know, pretty good summer. But my junior year, I ended up switching to a private Christian school, just because my parents wanted something different. So they wanted a semi-better environment for me, and I don't really want to say that I regret going, but basically, when I went to this private school, I kind of did the opposite of what you would happen going to a Christian private school, and I kind of rejected my faith completely. Like, I went from lukewarm to just like cold, checked out, like she's out of there. Like, I stopped going to youth group because that was kind of voluntary, but I still went to church with like my family because I had to, like my parents made me go. But yeah, so I was the new kid, and I never had been the new kid before ever in my life. So when I tell you I was pretty desperate for friends, I kind of wanted to seem cool. Like, I would not say like anyone specifically was like a horrible influence on me. I think part of me just wanted to like fit in with everybody. So I kind of just like put I don't want to say like moral authority in other people, but just like was not leaning on God for that, and was not leaning on God for anything for that matter. So I just kind of fell apart. And so like I dealt with a lot of toxic relationships during that time. I like became very anxious, very depressed, leaned on other vices, you know, all the things. And pretty much that was through entirety of my junior year, summer after my junior year, and up until like January of my senior year. And so it just was not a great time. I just remember most days not feeling great, but then, you know, I'd have one good day or a few good days, or, you know, anytime I was able to get out of my house was a good time, because I did not have the best, I didn't have a horrible relationship with my parents, but could have significantly been better had I not been doing not great things. Like, just because, you know, living that lifestyle, I tended to have to lie to them sometimes, which obviously I wish I had never done. I don't want to make it seem like everybody there were horrible people and I was like, it's all their fault, because I'm still friends with a good handful of them and they're still like really great people. I was so desiring things of this world, like my values and morals were like completely out the window, like and I don't know if it was like rebellion against my parents for making me go there, but like I didn't completely hate my time there too. Like I actually started to have fun right before I kind of like let all of my morals slip. But basically was kind of living like that until it was New Year's Day 2024, so about, you know, over a year ago. But I woke up mildly hungover. I'm gonna just be honest, because God saved me from that, and just kind of was just like, what in the world am I doing with my life? And I'm like, this is not actually fun. Like, I think this is fun. I think this is like what I should be doing. Like, I'm in high school. Like, it's what everyone else is doing. At that point, like, it was coming close to the end of my senior year. I had no idea what I was doing for college. I had no idea what I was doing for the rest of my, like, I had no like degree in mind pretty much. And I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so after that morning and the night before, I was like, I need to make a change. I need to start, like, something needs to change, because I am literally in the pits. Like, and so started opening my Bible more, started praying more, and engaging in church more, listening to worship music. I was at a coffee shop meeting a friend one day, and my friend Sierra worked at the coffee shop we went to. And so I had known her from the youth group that I had gone to with friends, and I was like, hey, like, I think I might want to like come back this week, will you be there? I was definitely kind of nervous about it, because I was like it actually took a lot of my guts to like ask her if I could come to church with her, because I didn't want to go alone, certainly. But she was like, yeah, of course, like, come, like, yeah. And yeah, so I went back that Thursday night, and it was kind of awkward. But I went back, and it was good. Basically, yeah, it was so good. Like, afterwards I was like, I needed that so badly. And so they invited me back the next night they were just doing like a church-wide worship night, and they were like, come back, like we can hang out or do something. And so I went back the next night, the worship night, and I gave my life to Jesus. I gave my life back to Jesus that night. It was January 19th, 2024. And I just remember, I just was like, it's like, yeah, you're where you need to be. Like, because I kind of was like, you know the answer. Like, and like leading up to that, the weeks leading up to that, I was like, you know the answer to your problems. Like, obviously, like, from your history, from your past, from everything the Bible studies you've done before, the trips you've done before, like, you know the answer. I just remember like going up to the altar and just like, I was on my knees, just sobbing, crying out to the Lord, and he met me where I was, and I just surrendered everything, you know, the guilt, the shame, all the things I had been doing wrong, all the anxiety, all the depression, and I just was like, I just leave it here because all I need is you. And I knew that, like I fully understood that because I had known it all along. After I, you know, gave my life back to Jesus, I just, you know, I decided to come to Liberty, just like a week later, committed. And I was just so excited for what the future held now. I just started, you know, like, I just, you know, really tried to make such a good effort of growing in my faith and learning. And I was like so ready to go do all these things. And I just spent the rest of my senior year desiring the Lord and chasing after the Lord. And was that the popular thing to do? No. Was it hard? Because, you know, with most of the people I was going to school with, or like at least in my class, yeah, I mean, it sort of was, just because obviously I don't know exactly what the relationship with the Lord was like, but there were times where I was made fun of. Comments were made at me or towards me, and I just dealt with it because I kind of knew and expected that to happen. But the rest of my senior year, like I said, just kind of full on fire for the Lord. My desires and my values kind of immediately changed with my surrender, and throughout the summer was just actively pursuing the Lord and pursuing things from him. So I came to Liberty, and obviously I've just done more growing. Have the best friends. I have friends from home who I've been growing alongside too, and it's just been such an incredible journey, especially here. This is such a unique place I go to school at, and I just love it so much because I get to grow in community, and it's a place that encourages my walk with the Lord, and God has led me to my major. I came in as a business and poli-sci student, and now I am in ministry. And I just think, you know, because it's like a year ago today, like even after I was saved, even after I was in the right direction, I could never picture or like think of myself worthy as doing ministry. Like obviously I'd been through so much like bad and still had some of the shame, but you know, like the Lord can use that for good. And this past January, it was January 19th, and it had been 1 year since I gave my life to Jesus. And the song that I gave my life to Jesus to, I didn't mention this earlier, but it was All Hail King Jesus, which is now one of my favorite songs because of that. It came on in the car when I was with one of my friends from home who has been with me all along on this journey. I feel like I had been wanting and considering getting rebaptized for a while, and so we were like, let's do it. And so her name's Kate, and my friend Savannah, and we FaceTimed my friend Sierra, and they baptized me in the fountain at school. But it was such a special moment. They had been with me pretty much every step of this recent journey, even before. Savannah and I have been friends since kindergarten, and kind of both found each other again when we needed it most. And they had just been encouraging me to come back to church and come to that worship night, and just have been with me ever since. And so it was such a special moment. And it was a year after it happened, and I had been like wondering if I should get rebaptized, just because I already had been before, but it definitely was worth it, and it's such a special memory. And yeah, I'm just actively like finding new ways to serve and do things at school and in the community here. So yeah, thank you for letting me share this and for listening. If you made it all the way through, like, kudos to you. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. This was really special. But yeah, hopefully I'll be consistent with posting on here if I actually end up posting this. But yeah, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and Jesus loves you so much.